Hi, this is Nick. Welcome to ISG, where we talk all things real estate in the Czech Republic. Today, we're going to look at the mismatched market. Nearly every buyer I speak to who wants to buy a property is looking to buy something small. And it makes sense. People don't have a lot of money for deposits and interest rates are really high and they just want to get on the property ladder, so they're looking at something small. Conversely, every seller that I speak to seems to have a very large property that they're looking to get off their hands. And here becomes the mismatch. So if we look at the history, many buyers over the last 10 years really maximized what they could get. Prices were low, interest rates were low, people bought big properties. They were buying properties easily for 10 million crowns back then, which are valued at around 16 plus million crowns today. So they've seen quite high growth and now they want to try and capitalize on that. The problem is there's not really the buyers in the market. Now, of course, there are buyers in the market for larger properties, but there are fewer of them. The cost makes it very high, especially when you compare it to rent for similar sized properties. You can rent a 4-bedroom apartment for, say, 50,000 crowns. But if you were to take out a mortgage on 80% of it, that might cost you 70, 80,000 plus having to put down a large deposit. So it's obvious that there aren't going to be too many buyers looking at this kind of thing. And the thing is, if you are a buyer, you want it to be perfect. Now, a lot of people, when they were buying their properties up to 10 years ago, they weren't maybe too worried about it. They were just trying to get the best deal they could, seeing what was on the market, and they didn't worry too much about the rest. The market was going up, so no need to worry. And of course, now you're coming to sell it, there are some few concerns. So if it's not absolutely perfect and what a buyer wants, it's quite often sitting around. Many properties I've seen where there are viewing after viewing after viewing and no one's really that interested. They're just doing the viewings to cross it off their list rather than put it on their list. So this is what we're starting to see. And because of that, we're starting to see a lot of properties out there which are just stuck. You go on S-Reality, you look at properties over 100 square meters, and you quite often see the same ones over and over again, which people are not clearly interested in buying. And that creates its own illusion as well, that why would I want to buy it if no one else is buying it? You lose that kind of demand element. And what we're starting to see because of this is we're starting to see more and more discounts on larger properties. So actually right now, some large properties out there can be available for as little as 100,000 crowns per square meter. We're talking 120 square meter apartments for 12, or 13 million. That seems an incredibly good deal. And at the same time, around the corner from these apartments could be new builds, which are 250,000 crowns per square meter, where a new 40 square meter property is 6 million or even more. So it's absolutely unbelievable that you can have this mismatch, and it's all caused by people's spending ability, and which is heavily hampered by how much money they can save, which is the wage growth versus the cost of living, and it's heavily influenced by the interest rates. And let's face it, these interest rates are not really that high right now, around 4%. It's not statistically very high. High would be 7, 8. So, it's not really that bad, and we already get that. And it just shows how overheated I think the Prague market has become over time, and it continues to be at the lower end of the market. I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy a small property, because generally small properties always maintain most of their value, especially compared with small ones. But I also think it's not a bad time to buy a larger property and maybe look at things and try and get a really good discount where you can, and take advantage of this big mismatch that we have in the market. Thanks very much for watching, and see you again soon.